What is often a hidden influencer in a change initiative? We know purpose is the why of an organization. We know strategy is the how to get there. But culture is often overlooked as a way to reach desired results. Of a transformation, as a means to get out of a crisis. Let's ask Jessica Kriegel, an expert on culture, what it is and how it can help reach the desired change. Welcome to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Berus, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing Jessica Kriegel in French and Kriegel in English. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Jessica, you're an expert in culture, so please define culture for our listeners, and then also, what exactly do you do to educate people on culture?
That's a great question, because many people don't know what we're talking about when we say the word culture. Culture is discussed ad nauseum in the workplace, but everyone's definition of culture seems to vary. We really don't have a mutually agreed upon definition. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing is let's all get on the same page about what culture really is. Because when you ask one CEO about culture, they will likely say it's the perks that you give someone in the workplace. For example, if you have a ping pong table at work, or if you have a break room with free food, if you get together for happy hours, those all seem like culture activities. In reality, they're not. Culture is the experiences that we have in the workplace with each other, and those experiences shape our beliefs. The beliefs about the work we're doing, the beliefs about each other, and that drives actions and that gets results. So culture is really the way we get results at work. And a happy hour or a ping pong table is not going to change culture. What changes culture is the experiences we are intentional about creating for each other.
Give us an example, the way we get results, that is culture. Give us an example of that.
Great question. So let's say an organization is interested in creating more diverse product offerings because they know that they need to diversify their portfolio. So really what they want is for people to be more innovative. The result they're trying to achieve is a diversified portfolio. The action they need people to take as a result is being more innovative, taking more risks. So if that's the action we want to take, we need to understand what beliefs people need to hold in order to behave that way. And what they need to believe as employees is that they are safe to take risks in the workplace, and that will be embraced by leadership. And so leaders need to create intentional experiences that will ensure that employees hold those beliefs. And that is ultimately culture in action.
I see. Well defined. Okay. So tell us a little bit why it's so important to focus on culture. You mentioned to set the environment so people can do or become more innovative. Can you comment a little further on that?
Yeah. I mean, culture is the way that we interact. It goes so far beyond the workplace. Culture is how we grow as people. It is how children develop their worldview. It's how families interact. It's how communities come together. So it's critical because it is the way that we advance humanity. I'm talking about it in the context of the workplace, right? But as a child, I have an experience at home with my family at the dinner table, and that shapes a belief about the importance of family, or what is right and wrong in the world, or what I want to do when I grow up. And that's going to drive my action, and that's going to get me results. And so we are growing and developing as people through culture in the workplace and out of the workplace. So I believe that the more people who understand what culture is and how it works, the better we can be generally in many more areas than just business results, the results we get in our community, for example.
So, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that leaders make with regards to culture?
I believe that culture, or the leader mistake that is most common, is getting stuck in what we at Culture Partners like to call the action trap. Most leaders look at results and they see we're either achieving our results or we're not achieving our results. And if they're not achieving their results, then they look at actions. Well, what do we need people to do differently? And they throw a bunch of action activities at their employees. Maybe we should do a new org structure. Maybe we need new technology. Maybe we need new processes. Those are all action solutions to the results problem. But really, what's going to create sustained behavioral change is not trying to change people's actions, but rather changing the beliefs they have. What belief is holding them back from behaving in the way that we need them to? And if we can change belief, which is really about mindset, then we can actually see sustained behavioral change. It's getting stuck in the day-to-day, what we need to do differently, rather than what we need to believe. What is the why of doing something differently?
Okay, so how do you change beliefs?
Through experiences, having intentional experiences that are conscious about creating beliefs that you want to see. So, for example, there are beliefs that we can drive, the kinds of experiences that will really shape beliefs in a workplace anyway. There's three main types. There's recognition, there's feedback, and there's storytelling. So the recognition that leaders give, the stories that they tell, and the feedback that they give are all driving beliefs about what is acceptable and not acceptable, what is helping us advance and aligned with our purpose and not. And those being very intentional about those three skills, which are pretty basic skills. They're not overly complicated, but being intentional about the frequency and the quality of those three things can shape beliefs in a significant way. We've studied it across thousands of organizations and we know it works.
So I'm fascinated personally because you are the scientist for Culture Partners. So how do you proceed to do research on cultures in different companies?
We do a few things. One, we have our own database of organizations that we've been working with for over 30 years. We have a long history of supporting organizations through the development and practice of these models. And so we study those organizations. We are in communication with the leadership, we're surveying, we're looking at results, impact of the work that's being done. We're correlating the impact of the work we do with the financial results, and we're seeing where there is alignment and where we miss the mark, because we are very interested in unlocking culture. We don't care if we find out that the way we've been doing it is wrong. In fact, we would love to know that because we want to create the best outcome for organizations. And so we do a lot of research within the companies that we have worked with and found really interesting insights within those organizations about not only the culture model, but also things like women in leadership and the impact of having more women in leadership roles than less women in leadership roles. We also do partner with academic institutions. We've just partnered with Stanford to do groundbreaking research in the area of culture and strategy alignment. And we are working in partnership with UKG, which is a large organization in the area of people and technology. And we have partnered together to identify other organizations that we can study to see what is the impact of purpose, of strategy, and of culture on financial results and employee fulfillment and well-being.
Okay, give me an example of what and how you approach the research to see the impact of women, for example, in a company at a management level. So
yes.
Do you interview people around to get their perception? That's the detail I'm looking for, Jessica.
Yeah, if you look at the research report we just published on women in leadership, what we did was we looked at thousands of employees across dozens of organizations that had filled out an engagement survey that was asking them about their culture with particular attention to variables such as psychological safety, clarity of results in what they are trying to achieve, general culture strength as perceived by the employee, and What we did was then organized the organizations and the teams into two categories. Organizations that had 45 to 75% of their leadership roles made up of women, and then organizations that had 0 to 20% of their leadership roles made up of women. And we compared the results of both of those groups. And the culture strength, the clarity of results, the psychological safety, all of those motivational factors were significantly lower to a statistical degree in the organizations that had less women in leadership than the organizations that had more women in leadership. Not only that, women across the board at every organization had lower scores than men in all of those categories as well. So first we saw women generally are not thriving as much as men, but that is reversed in organizations that have more women that are in leadership roles than men.
And so what would you say are the critical elements to have more women in leadership? What's one of the variables that was key for
the most significant variable?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the most significant variable was clarity of results, that in organizations with more women in leadership across the board, both men and women were more clear on the results that were expected of them in the workplace than in organizations with less women in leadership.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, more clarity of results. So then you go to the organization and say the results of the survey, and you advise them, for example. What's the advice you would give them concretely?
Well, we were really thrilled to see that significant variable was clarity of results, because for every client that we work with, that is always where we start. When someone says we need help with culture, the first question we ask is, great, culture to do what? What is it you want to accomplish? And we help organizations identify their key results, is what we call them. 3 simple metrics that are meaningful, measurable, and memorable that everyone in the organization can understand and get behind and work towards. We have what's called the culture equation, and it is a model that starts with purpose, understanding our why, understanding the thing that should motivate all the employees at the organization to get up in the morning and want to do their job. We identify that first. That's really the first and most important result we're trying to achieve, is the impact. Then we help organizations clarify their strategy. And you would probably not be surprised, since I know the work that you do and the number of clients that you have, you would probably not be surprised, although many people out there might be surprised, how few organizations have a very clear and cohesive strategy. McKinsey did a study that said that less than 5% of employees understand their organization's strategy. And if your employees don't understand your strategy, how on earth can they be helping you to accomplish that strategy? So we clarify the strategy as the second step. Your purpose is your why. Your strategy is your how. How are we going to accomplish it? So we start with results, and then we move to culture, which is the way you get the results, through activating experiences which shape beliefs, which drive actions, which get those results we've identified. And
then even working with our mindset to change.
Absolutely. And that key mindset piece is accountability. Number one in our mind is there's this great quote from Lao Tzu that said, I'm butchering the quote, but the general gist of the quote was, in order to have peace in the world, we need peace in the countries. To have peace in the countries, we need to have peace in the cities. To have peace in the cities, we need peace between neighbors. To have peace between neighbors, we need peace in the family. And to have peace in the family, we need peace within ourselves. And that is what we believe about culture. If you change country to company and neighbors to teams, we need to work on ourselves first before we can show up in a thriving culture and really be intentional. And so that means accountability, and not the kind of accountability where we're trying to tell people to get their job done, and if you don't, we're going to give you consequences, but really the willingness to rise above your circumstances to ensure that what you need to get done gets done. It's autonomy. It's owning your journey.
So how do you help companies do just that? Because that's almost very personal, and many companies separate the personal from the business. Thank goodness more and more companies are using coaches to do just that, to do that transformation. But in your case, how do you approach it? We are helping companies break that personal work barrier.
that phrase, it's not personal, it's business, is completely misguided because we are people doing business. And so we bring people to the forefront of conversations about business and about getting results. And we help them break down the barriers, the acts that we have at work, the roles that we identify with, even the language we use, the fact that we call each other employees. It's like, we are more than employees. We are people who are employed by this organization. But I am so much more than just an employee. And so we encourage the breakdown of these barriers to real authenticity and ownership of how I show up in that place so that we can get results.
And so what kind of companies are most susceptible to use your services?
There are two categories, I would say, of organizations that reach out to us. Number one is organizations who are passionate about culture. They understand the importance of culture, and they have a strong culture already. And now they've got new goals. They're trying to go from good to great. They've got some sort of transformation they need to go through, a new strategy. Maybe it's a merger acquisition. There's something different that they need to elevate their culture in order to accomplish these new, bigger, better, badder goals that they used to have. And so they want help going from A to B. The other is organizations in crisis, organizations that are failing to meet their targets, that are struggling with engagement or employee morale, where something's off and we don't know what. We need our people to be more aligned. We need our people to be more engaged. We need our people to be more fill in the blank. And they believe that culture is the answer. Or maybe they don't even know that culture is the answer, but they know they need help. And we help show them that culture is the answer.
Very interesting. So what would you give like advice to a company that is just going into a crisis? What's the first steps you advise them to do?
The first thing is to remember our why, is to start with purpose. And the purpose can have nothing to do with making money. It cannot be about being number one or winning or, the win-lose metrics of life that we typically think about in the corporate world are not going to help you get beyond a crisis. You have to understand the impact that you want to have. So our impact, for example, is to unleash the power of culture to inspire people and businesses to reach their full potential. That's the thing that makes me motivated to get up and push myself in the morning. And that's what everyone at our company is excited about. We need to get everyone, first of all, aligned around that. We need to be sure that we have the right mission and that everyone knows what it is. I should be able to call any person at any organization and ask them what their mission statement is or their purpose, whatever you want to call it. And they should be able to give the same exact answer that the CEO would give. And if not, that's your first biggest problem to solve. Get everyone aligned behind the mission. Then we look at specific results, metrics that we want to achieve in order to be able to accomplish that mission. That's always the starting point.
Very interesting, for sure. For example, I have just recently interviewed a CEO of several technology companies, or was a CEO of several technology companies, and he mentioned the huge difference between a company that has been in place for a long time and the employees have been there for a very long time. So that once he wanted to do the transformation, that's why he came in and acquired the company. It's to transform it and make it more profitable. What he found was that the longer they've stayed in a company and the older they are, the less flexible they are to change. What do you say about that?
That's interesting. We haven't done research around that necessarily. I would say that what we have seen is the massive delusion that the idea of culture fit is a good idea can often lead to that kind of a result. And what I mean by that is a lot of people look for culture fit when they're hiring, and they want to find people like us. Most people, when they think about culture fit, are thinking about who would I want to go get a beer with? And what that leads to is a lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace because we pick people who look and walk and talk like us. And so culture fit can actually be extremely detrimental. And so some organizations maybe who have a long, extreme tenure within their employee populations, they may have achieved a certain level of comfort within culture fit, because what the opposite of culture fit is when you have more diversity, more different thinking, more people challenging each other, it can actually be more difficult. It can be, we're pushing each other, we're questioning, we're not all in agreement all the time. And so that can seem like it's harder. In reality, maybe we're doing our best work because of that challenging. And so I could see how perhaps long tenure would be that, but I'm just speculating on that. I don't have any research on that. What we do know is that the upgraded version of culture fit is purpose fit. Finding people who care passionately about the impact that this organization is going to make in the world, and finding that purpose fit creates meaning in people's lives. And there's tons of research on how meaning gives people more motivation than, money or any of the other things that leaders typically lean in to motivate their employees.
Super interesting. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our podcast, Jessica. Where can people get a hold of you?
We have some resources for your listeners. If they're interested in reading some of our research or getting access to some of our ebooks on best practices, we also have a playbook. They can go to podcast.culture.io and download whatever it is that will be useful to them in their journey.
Great. Thank you so very much, Jessica. Very interesting.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure to have this chat.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for listening to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. You can subscribe to all future podcasts at excellentexecutivecoaching.com. Join us each Wednesday to learn more about the latest trends in leadership techniques and bring your coaching to the next level. To learn more about Dr. Burris's CEO Mastermind, use the contact form at excellentexecutivecoaching.com.